Hi, I'm still bald and I'm wearing a fuzzy jacket because I'm cold, and today's video is all about my Dover Amplification DA50. Right, I've been meaning to make a video on my Dover DA50 for quite a while now. I bought this amp from my good buddy Stu in 2020, and if memory serves me correctly, which is a coin toss at this point in my life, Dover landed on the scene a year earlier in 2019, and 2019, 2020, 21, Dover was super hype. And in my memory, that was the amp to have. Everybody was talking on it on the Facebook, gear groups, YouTube, you name it. That was the amp to have. And I feel like they couldn't build them fast enough. They were being ripped out of their hands as soon as they were finished. But in recent years, the hype has kind of died down, and they stopped posting on social media a while ago. And I fear I know why. In the meantime, we'll get to that in a second. And I've wanted to make a video on this amp for quite a while, but it was research on a different amp brand that made me pull this forward in the queue. And that was Valhalla Amplification. Last year at NAMM, so 2024 NAMM, I feel like there was a buzz about two amps in particular. One was the Lichtlam Audio Prometheus, the GOAT, and the other one was the amplifier from Valhalla Amplification. And one of the men behind Valhalla Amplification is a man by the name of Key Mayer. And Key Mayer is also the man behind Dover Amplification. And if I remember correctly, he was also an engineer at Hiwatt for the longest time, and I think he was involved in developing the Hiwatt, also Maxwatt, custom super high 50, the one they did together with Fortin Amplification. And those two amplifiers, the Dover DA50 and the Hiwatt Maxwatt custom super high 50, they bear a lot of resemblance, very similar channel layouts, and from the video demos I've seen and heard, they kind of have a very similar tonal flavor as well. I don't think anybody's done a shootout between those because it's quite difficult. Dovers are rare, and the Hiwatt Maxwatt custom super high 50 is even more rare. I only know of one guy who had both, and that is Arnold from Arnold Plays Guitar. He had both for a while, but I think he sold the Hiwatt before doing a shootout. Arnold's back on YouTube, by the way. Check him out. Great channel. The creator of the Unbiased Gear Review. But I've seen that now in 2025, Hiwatt are bringing out production models of the Super High 50 and also a Super High 30. So Hiwatt, call me. Anyway, I digress. I was doing research on Valhalla Amplification because they don't have a website. They only have an Instagram page, and it's not very active either. And they weren't at NAMM this year, so I wanted to know what was up with that. I Googled them and I found the information about them on gov.co.uk, so there's lots of company information on UK companies on that. And I could see who was behind the company, one of the men being Key Mayer. And then I noticed that's the hyperlink. I can click on his name, and yeah, curiosity got the better of me. I clicked just to see where else he was involved. One of these things is Dover Amplification, on which I clicked. And there I saw that last year Dover Amplification was dissolved. So Dover is dead. And I wonder why. Everybody seemed to love the amplifiers, and they seem to not be able to get them out of the door quick enough. I mean, did COVID supply chain issues kill that brand, or was it just hype? So I want to find out today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my usual amp demo. I'm just going to go through the controls on the amplifier, give you some sound demos, play it through my Mesa 412 here with a Vintage 30 from 2003 with a Shure SM57. And also briefly through the Amp Central Evo from RedSeven just to see how it sounds through a Loadbox. And then I'm going to shoot it out against these three fine amplifiers here. Why did I choose these three? Well, it had to be a 5150 because that is the F150 of the amp world. Everybody knows how they sound. Everybody knows if they like them or not. So that's always going to be a benchmark. And I chose the orange Rockerverb 50, which also used to belong to Stu, by the way, same guy who bought this amp new. Thank you for taking the hit of my new Stu, and the Diezel D-Moll. I chose those two because at the time when the Dover came out, these two amps would have been priced similarly, at least in Europe. And they offer their own unique flavor, and just for shits and giggles, really. So let's get into the Dover amplification. The DA50 has two channels, gain 1 and gain 2, each with a gain knob and a master, that's the volume knob, a simple 3-band EQ, depth and presence. On the back, there's an effects loop, several speaker connections, bias ports where you can measure and set the bias, and also a half power switch, or is it a pentode triode switch? I can't remember, let me check. It just says high and low on the back, but I think it's a pentode triode switch, effectively. There is a global boost that you can switch on, which switches in an additional gain stage into the circuit. So it's not like a front-end boost, but after the rest of the circuitry, similar to the Plexicalibur pedal I demoed a few weeks ago there. And yeah, let's see what this does. I like it best on either of the channels with the gain boost in and gain about halfway up, and it sounds like this. So really tight and aggressive sounding, doesn't have a lot of low end sag. So it's been described as a very tight sounding amp, which is something people often say about amps like the VHT and Fryette line as well. And that kind of makes sense to me because they share circuitry ancestry. Stephen Fryette has gone on record several times saying that he was inspired by David Reeves amps, who was the man behind high watt amplification, and Key Mayer having been at high watt. That kind of makes sense that it has similar characteristics. And this is one of the amps that I feel like doesn't necessarily need a boost to sound modern, tight, and aggressive. And there's only very few amps that I feel that way about, one being the Lichtlamp Audio Prometheus, some Engel amps, and indeed the Dover DA50. But for shits and giggles, let's add a boost anyway. One of the things I think that people mean when they say an amp sounds very tight and dry, that's the verb I was looking for. I didn't mention that just earlier on. That's the dryness. That's what they describe Fryettes and VHTs to sound like. I think what that is a certain low-end characteristic. This amp doesn't really sag an awful lot, but it retains a lot of string clarity. I mean, even with the boost engaged, you can hear every string ring out when you play complex chords with a ludicrous amount of And describing guitar tone is something very difficult because the scene is full of buzzwords, but to make a slightly technical analogy, somehow this amp sounds and feels like to me as if there was a clean guitar signal blended in with the distorted sound. There's always a certain hardness I can hear there, hardness and clarity. Yeah, as if there was an additional clean signal blended in there. And some people might dislike that because it makes the amp not as easy to play sometimes. There's a lot of saturation and a lot of sag that makes it easier to hide your flaws, of which I have many. And you'd think I wouldn't like that, but the opposite is true. In fact, I like an amp that challenges me a bit. So I like that characteristic. But let's turn off the boost. Let's look at the control panel first. We have two channels here, which are possibly identical. I'm not sure. I've had debates with buddies about this, also with Stu, who had this amp before. I'm not sure if there is a difference, or if the difference I'm hearing is just down to pot tolerances. Let me show you. Let's switch back and forth between gain 1 and gain 2. I'm on gain 2 right now. 2 is a bit louder. If there is a difference, it's tiny. I personally think it's just pot tolerances. But let's move over to gain 2 and turn off the boost. Let's see what this amp can do without the boost. Let's just switch over to gain 2 just to make sure. Yeah, still better. Let's lower the gain. Doesn't really do cleans. As you can see, the gain is almost off, and I've had to turn up the volume quite considerably compared to the volume setting when we're playing high gain. Yeah, not really. It's a bit bright that way. I didn't want to go to the EQ yet, but I'm going to turn down the treble a bit. Still excellent string clarity though. String clarity. Let's up the gain a bit. Getting nice. Up the gain all the way. And the beef's coming in, it's getting thicker. Boost to that. Honestly, that's almost all the gain I'd need. But let's lower the gain a bit again and turn on the boost. So with the gain low and the boost on, we have less gain than with the gain cranked and the boost off. So there's a good amount of overlap there. Gain even more. Let's give it all that it has. It's getting very feedbacky. Let's be stupid not a bit for that. Even at that ludicrous gain setting with a boost engaged, it doesn't lose clarity. There's still string definition. I think that is quite remarkable. Very interesting, but still, it's yeah, it's over the top. It's hard to control. Let's move back to the setting where we started at, which is gain 2 with the boost on. I want to check out what the EQ does. And I thought I'd try something different. I'd port something over from my speaker videos. That is on my laptop, my Creative Devices laptop right here. I have Voxengo Span Plus loaded with a frequency response graph, and we're just going to see what the EQ dials do. Let's start off with the bass. We'll lower it all the way. Interesting. It doesn't seem to do an awful lot, both sonically and visibly, but it seems to kind of lift the frequencies up to about 250 hertz up and down a little bit. Let's check out what the mid knob does. Well, tonally that has a more drastic effect. Still don't see a huge difference in the graph. Seems to kind of lift up everything up to 5 kilohertz. Seems to lift up everything up to 5 kilohertz a bit. So let's see what the treble knob does. Okay, sonically that seems to have a drastic effect as well. Still don't see drastic shifts in the graphs. So the graphs aren't maybe aren't the best tool for this, but you can see that everything over 2 kilohertz kind of shells up and down. Let's move over to the power controls, depth and resonance. Those are powerful, I can tell you right now. Well, as the name implies, resonance seems to affect the resonance of the cab. So that peak we can. So what's that? 125 hertz. That seems to be affected most by that. So the effect of the depth knob kind of sits below the effect of the bass knob, I'd say. Let's lastly check out presence, and this is going to hurt my ears. Yeah. All right, before we go to the shootout section, I want to check out how the Dover works with the Loadbox. I'm going to be loading of this cab I made with myself. So I'm going to pull out my worn out Audio-Technica M50. These aren't even the M50X. These are with the cable that you can't take off. Go for that hobo engineer look. Yeah, with the Loadbox, I can hear Loadbox in combination with the Dover DA50 sounds good, but I can hear my flaws better. Yeah. So let's check out how the Dover compares to the EVH5150. So first the Dover. So the tone itself, in the room at least, is not too dissimilar. They share a certain characteristic, but there's a big difference in the low end response. The 5150's low end is much more bouncy, for lack of a better word. It feels more elastic, so it kind of moves more, while the Dover is definitely more stiff. Yeah, let's check out how the Dover compares to the Orange next. I'm going to keep playing the same riff. Here the difference is much more apparent. The Dover feels much faster, it has a much tighter response, but the Orange is slower, gooier, sludgier. I'm going to use a boost in the next round with all the amps that might level the playing field a bit. But before that, let's check out how it compares to the Diezel D-Moll. Again, the Dover feels and sounds tighter than the Diezel D-Moll. The response is more immediate. The D-Moll is a bit slower, not as slow as the Orange, I think. Yeah, the D-Moll has a lot of mids. That's a Diezel thing. However, the D-Moll has a feature from its bigger brother, the Habit, which is the mid cut. And I just want to engage that for shits and giggles and toggle back and forth a bit. Still a little slower, but one thing that the Diezel or Diezel amps in general and the Dover share is string clarity. I think Diezels often come with a lot of low mids. They're big, heavy, thumpy amps. Not always the fastest, not super modern inherently, not with a boost at least, but they retain fantastic string clarity. So I'm going to turn off the mid cut now, and now we're going to repeat the whole thing with a boost engage. First versus the 5150. Maybe I'll use a different riff. Again, that bounciness in the low end of the EVH5150 is apparent. It's a more comfortable amp, just for lack of a better term. It feels cushioned. It's a big fluffy couch, while the Dover is has a bit of a bench in comparison. But still, overall, kind of similar flavors. Let's move on to the Orange. Tell you what, the boost might almost be too much on the Dover. However, it levels the playing field a bit compared to the Orange that felt much slower without a boost. The boost tightens up the Orange considerably. It feels much tighter and much more immediate. But still, it has a different mid-emphasis, and still it's not as clear and tight as the Dover. For better or worse, some people might prefer the way the Dover reacts, some people might prefer the way the Orange reacts. It's a matter of preference. So lastly, let's check out how the Dover with a boost compares to the Diezel Demo with a boost. Tell you what, the other amps, those three seem to react to the boost in a way that it raises the overall volume more than it does on the Dover. But before I get into that, let me activate the mid boost on the Diezel. The boost has a similar effect on the Diezel as it has on the Orange, making it more tighter and more direct. However, I think the Diezel has more string clarity over the Orange with a boost still, similar to that of the Dover. However, the mid sound, the way the mids sit is different, and the low end is obviously bigger on the Diezel, and it's a bit more comfortable, not as bouncy as it feels on the 5150, but not as rigid as it does on the Dover. So why did Dover die? I'm not sure, to be honest, because tone-wise, it holds its own. It's a fantastic sounding amp. It might be a bit of a one-trick pony, well, maybe two tricks. It does a decent crunch or high-gain crunch, and it does fantastic high-gain tones. The amps on the other side there, most of them are more than one-trick ponies. The Diezel D-Moll is a very versatile amp. It has a fantastic clean channel, has a great second channel that covers anything from light crunch to high gain with a boost. It has the mid-cut on board, so it's much more feature-laden than the Dover, which is very minimalistic in comparison. Same for the Orange. The Orange has two drastically different channels. It has a very, very clean channel, and it has a sludgy, dirty channel, which can become tight and modern with the right boost in front of it. And the EVH5150 is the EVH5150. It has the blue channel, which is fantastic, does great crunches all the way up to high gain. It has the red channel, which is quite frankly insanely gainy. You don't need a boost with that. And it has a usable clean channel. I mean, it's not an amazing clean channel, but it's a clean channel that works quite well. And the newer 50-watt EVHs have those dual concentric pods, so you can actually set gain and volume for green and blue individually, not like my old one here. So that is something that the Dover might have been lacking, but still within my idiotically large amp collection, the Dover has a special place. It occupies a sonic space that the other amps don't really do, with the exception of maybe the Lichtlamp Audio Prometheus, but that also has a different low end. So the Dover is unique, and I'm not sure why Dover died. It might have been the pandemic. Maybe Keymaker wanted to do different things, do designs. Quite frankly, I would have loved to have seen a Dover DA100 with an additional clean channel and bigger iron, bigger transformers. I think that would have been very cool. I don't know Keymaker personally. Maybe I'll have the chance to ask him personally one day what happened to Dover. But until then, yeah, rest in peace, Dover amplification. It's a shame. Well, that's all I've got for today. I hope you found this video either interesting or entertaining or both. As long as you didn't think it sucked, I'm happy with that. I'm going to check out now. I hope to see you in the next video. I've got tons more speaker videos and other test videos coming, so I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!